layer styles. So let's create a new layer, and I can fill it with any color here. Just double click and then turn on my gradient overlay. Now I'm going to want to change these colors. The way the gradients work is you've got these different stops in your gradient. You can drag them around and it changes the aspects of your gradient, and then you can click at any point to add a new one, and then you could add a totally random color. So now we're going from white to red to black, and you can see how as I move these it changes exactly what's going on in my gradient. So here the transition from black to red, as you see here, is really quick, whereas the transition from red to white happens over quite a bit of space. Alright, I'm going to cancel out of that. That's not the gradient I want. So that's reset. What I'm going to do is change these to a bit of a dark blue color. I'll just copy and paste that color so I can easily use it right here, and then just go a tad darker. Alright, maybe we'll lighten this up a little bit. We don't want to go too dark. Okay, now you might not be able to see it, but there's a bunch of horizontal lines going across here, and that's banding in the gradient. So it's not blending smoothly, it is kind of doing it in lines, and it looks really bad. And to prevent that, you can just check dither right here, and now it's nice and smooth. So that is our first gradient going from dark to light. We'll just call this linear gradient. Now I'm going to duplicate this layer, just drag it down there, and I'll rename it to what I'm going to do, which is change this and add a radial gradient as well. And so one of the things we didn't cover is there's a few different styles of gradients. So I can go radial, so now it's coming from from the center and coming out as a circle. There's angle, which does that. Reflected, which goes from one color to your other color and then back to the first. And finally diamond, which is like the radial but in a diamond pattern. So I'm going to use radial. I want the light colored on the inside, and so I'm going to reverse that gradient. And then what I'm going to do is drop the opacity down. And now what happened here is now this gradient is mixing with the black color of the layer. And so what I'm going to do is get rid of that black fill color entirely by clicking on the fill and dragging it down to 0. And so now this radial gradient overlay is blending with this linear gradient overlay. So you can see kind of the difference there. And then just to play with it, I'm going to reverse my linear gradient so that the lighter color is on the bottom, just for fun. So we've created a little bit of a dynamic background, and it's looking good. Now, I like to just have more things going on and more variation. And a great way to do that is with an image. So I'm going to go to a free stock photo site, sxc.hu. You got to create an account, but that's easy. And then I'm just going to go under abstract, and we're going to find a photo, and you'll get what I'm looking for in a second, but I just want something that has quite a bit of variation going on, and this butterfly I think will work just fine. So once it loads all the way, that looks good, I'm going to copy it and drop it into my document. And let's see, and I'm just scaling this down. I'm holding down both Shift and Option as I scale it. That way it's scaling from all sides and maintaining its proportions. And I just want it to fill everything there, and then Enter will end that free transform. We will call this blurred background. It's not blurred yet, but it will be. Now I want to desaturate it. So Image Adjustments, Desaturate, turns it black and white, and then Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur. And you can play with this, from a tiny blur, which obviously now it looks like a butterfly, but the more we blur it, somewhere in here you have no idea that it's a butterfly, and I just get this nice variation in the whole background. And now I can take this, set the blend mode to overlay, and then drop the opacity. I just use the number 5 on my keyboard to drop the opacity, and that's looking good. I can also maybe run the blur again, because I decided it wasn't quite enough of a blur. So now I've got some nice variation going on, and it's a great background for us to work from.